You're the one that you've been looking for. And I'm just here to remind you of that. I've created this channel to learn things and then to share them with you.
Okay. The usual. I'm your host, Keith, man of letters, knowledge, information, entertainment. You got it. Bada bing, bada boom. You want to subscribe to the channel? Boom. You know where the subscribe button is. If you don't, that's cool too. Thanks for stopping by. Ram Dass. I used to criticize certain people out there. It's probably the Aries in me. Kind of a hater. Coming hot on people. Horns first. What do you want from me? It's my job. The ego. If you're a follower of my channel, you'll know that what I'm about to say right now is by no means something new. Just sit back, relax, take your shoes off, stay a while, enjoy the ride. For you newcomers, I'm going to hit you with something heavy. Not heavy, it's actually very reasonable. However, in the spiritual community, there seems to be a sort of unwarranted hatred towards the ego. And I've criticized this for the past couple of years. Even in my book, I criticized the hell out of this, but it is what it is. I found the problem, though. But first, let me read the quote. By Ram Dass. It says, "The ego is frightened by death because ego is a part of the incarnation and ends with it. That is why we must learn to identify with our soul, as our soul continues after death. For the soul, death is just another moment." Harsh criticism on the ego. Poor ego. Alright, check this out, you guys. I figured it out. I figured out a way to make this more palpable for the introductory student of spirituality or occultism, esotericism, or the advanced who has been caught up in the dogma of the spiritual game, which is a dogma like all the other dogmas. I'm separating it into two categories. Ego is the umbrella. We'll do two subcategories. Now, the ego that everyone hates on, that's the only one anyone seems to ever be talking about, is the thing that makes you an asshole, or the thing that makes you selfish, or the thing that's, like the quote said, it fears death and this and that. You can't attach to the ego, or ego this, and the ego that, and everyone's like, oh my god, you must transcend the ego. You must. Okay, I digress. I'm gonna give you guys the two different distinctions of the ego. That way you will be a true student of this craft. Right? A true student of this craft. If you want to be a true student of this craft, get the hell out of here with those dogmatic phrases and dogmatic one-liners. I don't care if they come from Ram Dass or if they come from Can I Get a Hello. I don't care. You guys gotta take in things with some sort of discernment, right? So check this out. Here's the two things. The ego. Here is the debatably source definition for the ego. It's actually not quite source, but hear me out. It's sort of mine. I got bit by a mosquito. Oh man, mosquitoes got me. Okay. This is an interpretation I have, but a fucking realistic one. Alright, you guys? Trust me on this. I've done a lot of learning, and I've poked around a lot of philosophies, and I've poked around a lot of religions, and I've poked around a lot of occult texts, and I've just king poke these days. You know what I mean? With that being said, I've figured out what the ego is. Plain and simple. Verified by the occult scientists throughout history all the way back to ancient Atlantis and Thoth the Atlantean. Alright, so here it is. Here's how, I'll give you the negative one first. Here's how you've been taught to see the ego. The ego was sort of childish, or the ego is limiting, or the ego is the root of all evil, or the ego is XYZ for bad things. The ego is bad and you should avoid it at all costs. That is the definition of ego and spirituality, the one that I've been force-fed for the past decade or so. Now, I'll relate that to Ram Dass's quote. Said the ego fears death because the ego is born incarnation. That's more or less true, but here's the thing. No one explains the why. We just hear what they say and take it verbatim. Oh, it's Ram Dass, it must be true. But as you guys will learn if you're true students of the occult practices, all truths are but half-truths. And you only get from as far as I can see, every source, the negative half of the truth, which is absolutely useless. It's abso-fucking-lutely useless to anyone, period. You guys, nothing in this existence is useless. Nothing is useless. Everything has a purpose. Everything has a connection to something else, and you have to understand that. And it's like everything else in existence, it is a tool to be looked at as a tool, to be understood as a tool. And tools can be used for both good and bad. Pick up a hammer, I can build a house. Pick up a hammer, I can kill a man, right? They're all tools, including the ego. And the ego, you guys, I wish you would understand this. The ego is debatably the most beautiful, curious, peculiar, fascinating tool we have at our grasp, that we have access to in this existence, outside of oneness. And here's the reason why. Because the ego is not a bad thing, and it's not a good thing, right? That is one part that they fucking teach you, but they don't describe anything else for you, which is absolutely useless. It's like, thanks for the half-truth and not the whole truth. Thanks for nothing, basically. Well, I'll go backwards and I'll explain to you how you should see the ego and how incredible existence is with it. I'll speak on behalf of the ego. I'll build a case for the ego. The ego is simply, no more, no less, a lens. That's it. You are looking at me right now through my camera lens. If I were to switch the camera lens, the image would change. Now, when you wrap your head around this, you'll see that there can be an infinite amount of lenses, because there can be an infinite amount of experiences in an infinite existence. So, infinity must exist as something if it wants to have an infinite amount of experiences. If I want to enjoy ice cream today, source must churn into ice cream. If I want to eat a double-double, chopped chilies, mustard fried, hold the pickles, no onions, no tomatoes, a fry and a cup of water, thanks. If I want that tomorrow, the universe in all its infiniteness must coalesce into a form to exist and a form to experience. And the types of forms available for source, for oneness, for the all to manifest into is infinite, because source is even beyond infinite. The ego is that lens which allows us to have an individual perception of reality. What does that mean? Well, what that means is the ego is, as I started off with, the ego is a lens. It is that thing that allows you to have an individual experience in reality, whatever reality that is. Whether it's the reality of human consciousness, whether it's the reality of plant consciousness, whether it's the reality of mineral consciousness, whether it's the purely electrical consciousness, everything has an ego, a sort of ego, to allow it to have an individual access to this reality. Because once again, if everything was oneness, infinity, all possibilities existing at the same exact time, there wouldn't actually be one experience to fully live out, to fully develop, to fully feel. The lens that I have that allows me to see beautiful places like my town of Santa Barbara, that allows me to see beautiful sunsets come October, which has the most magnificent sunsets of any time of the year. Temperature is perfect, the air is perfect, the temperature of the water is perfect, the sand feels amazing between your toes, the colors that bounce off the clouds because it tends to be cloudy in October, plus the lowered angle of the sun on the horizon because it's fall, creates the most magnificent sunsets you could possibly imagine, right? That experience that is described right now is it. That is, I am allowed to see that through Keith's eyes because of my ego. Yes, of course, I can be oneness and experience the beauty of everything all at once for all infinity. Probably more amazing, but a different type of experience is experiencing it as Keith, as you, as this candle, or being on the other side of that and experiencing it as the sun casting light onto the planet. Like, everything has a sort of consciousness that's accessed by the all, but the all source is able to experience through us all these different occurrences because we all have this thing called an ego, which gives us an individual experience. You get what I'm saying? So, by no fucking means is the ego a bad thing. It is a lens that individualizes you onto the plane of whatever reality you choose. Here's the bad thing. Here's how it goes south. Of course, when we attach to the ego, and instead of seeing the ego as a lens which we look through, we associate ourselves with that actual lens, that actual piece of individualization. So if I say I am Keith, and I latch on to this idea of if I can never be anything else, then I fear death. Because when Keith dies, what am I? Nothing. Well, but I'm not Keith. I'm not the ego. I'm the thing looking through the ego, right? Looking through the lens. That's what I'm doing. That's the confusion. And furthermore, I'm sorry, I gotta call this one out too, Mr. Ram Dass. I gotta call this one out too. What do you want from me? My hands is tied. My hands is tied. But he also talks about we must attach ourselves to the soul, because the soul is where we should be focusing. I don't know. I can't remember what he said. But no, that is still not it. The soul is another form of experience. Therefore, it's another form of the ego. And that's what I meant by the ego exists on every plane. Well, Keith exists on the physical plane. The ego allows access to that. The soul is quote-unquote keyth, but something higher than keyth, but that exists on whatever plane. We call it the astral plane, or probably the mental plane, or it wouldn't be the emotional plane. It could be another dimension. I don't know. Depends who you ask. Everyone's got their own term. Point is, the soul is still another version of the ego, because everyone has their own soul, which means souls themselves are individualized, which means they too have a sort of ego. Now, if you wanted to be more correct, that quote wouldn't say focus on the soul. The quote would say something like focus on. If you were to ask Alan Watts, he would say, you gotta focus. He said, I'll tell you what it all is. Tell you what it all is. Get it? Right? It's undefinable. You literally cannot put a definition on oneness, because to put a definition on it, to define it, means to cut it out. When you define something, you cut it out and you put it somewhere. Like this shape was defined in the plastic when it was cut. Right? You removed everything else and you made it a singular object. You can't do that with oneness, you guys. You can't fucking make oneness one thing. Otherwise, it wouldn't be infinite. Right? You can't say oneness is this because this is this, and it is only this right now. Whereas oneness is so. What I'm trying to say is, going from the ego to the soul is the same trap. It's playing the same game. You're associating yourself with something that is still fleeting, because even souls have to come into existence. This is alchemy, right? Leonardo da Vinci, Michelangelo, Isaac Newton, these alchemists, hermeticists, broke this down in 3 parts. Mind was the all, right? Mind, and then you have your soul. That is your essence, and then mind, body, and body, which is salt. Salt is body, mineral salts. Alcohol is spirit. That's why alcohol connects you to spirit. That's why they say don't drink alcohol in the Middle East, because it lets the spirits in. I digress. Where was I? Ram Dass, attaching with the soul, the ego. Yeah, drop it. Don't attach to the soul. Don't attach to the ego. I take that back. Attach to whatever the hell you want to attach to. I'm a man of letters, not a man of preaching. You do whatever the hell you want. All I want to do is make sure that you know how to do the things that you want to do, and how to understand the things that you want to do, so that you're not doing the wrong things that you should be doing, and you're not doing what you should be doing, and you're doing what you shouldn't be doing, and you're wondering why you take 2 steps forward and 1 step back, and why you've been on the spiritual path for a decade, but you feel like you haven't made any progress. And that's because you've been barking up the wrong tree the whole time. Especially when it comes to the ego, because that's the one that always comes back to you guys. You can attach to it. You can attach to the ego if you want. If you really love who you are, there's nothing fucking wrong with that. And I mean you as you are here on earth. If you love your eyebrows and your job and your career and the city you live in and the planet you live in and like your hobbies and your interests, if you love all those things about you, fucking love the hell out of them. Attach to them like nobody's fucking business, because this is the only time you're ever going to experience you. Right? So live it to the fucking fullest. Love yourself by all means. Attach to yourself if you fucking want. What you have to realize is at some point you have to untouch. Right? And realize no, you're not actually this thing. This thing is incredibly fleeting, but you are something deeper than that. Right? You're something a little deeper than that. So no, at some point that this has got to go, and then the next one's gonna come. That's what I mean by. I personally feel like. And maybe this is why I study so much and learn so much. Feel like the more I know, the better I feel. Like, for example, I've spent a good year researching people's past lives who have crazy, unbelievable past life stories, identifying where their body was buried in a previous life fighting in World War II and being shot down over Japanese waters. Just crazy shit. Knowing that made me feel better about the afterlife. Like, okay, Keith, there are some fucking stories that are above and beyond coincidence. Like, this is absolute, to me, 100% proof of life continuing. Boom. That piece of knowledge made me feel better. So that's sort of what I do. Knowledge makes me feel better. And I'm just a curious motherfucker. I like peculiar things. What can you do? But the knowledge helps, which is why I want to make this video. I don't want to hate on Ram Dass, or just people in this field in general. It's just that a lot of the information is dangerous. It's very misleading. Like, when you're told, for example, in the spiritual realm, when you're told to hate on your ego, and the ego is the thing that gives you fucking perception of this reality, like, what does that do to your perception of reality? Destroy your ego. Okay, well, my ego is how I access this plane. So, you want me to get rid of that? And some of you, the answer might be yes. You're through with this realm, and you do want to get rid of the ego, and you do want to blast off and, to explore the dimensions. Here's the catch, though. I don't believe that not all people actually want to do that. Me, for example, there's a lot of things I want to do here on Earth, a lot of fucking magnificent things that I want to create and experience through my eyes, through the eyes of Keith, how it would feel Keith the Earthling would experience this shit. I have all infinity to experience other life forms, but I don't know. By the way, this is just oregano. Not to be confused with anything else. I don't know what you guys, do with your spare time. Like I said, I'm not here to preach, other than to let y'all know that this is oregano. I think that's about the end of the video. In conclusion, yes, attaching to the ego is bad. Actually, no, I'm not done. There's a couple more things I wanted to talk about. I was reading the Cabal, and it was talking about a section on demonology and the fall of Lucifer and stuff like that. Super fascinating. But this is where I first started rummaging. I had this new concept of the ego, a new way to see it that made more sense according to the texts that I've been reading and keeping up with. It actually proposed 3 to 5 different reasons for the ego, reasons for evil. Fascinating stuff. Check this out. One of the propositions was evil as a necessity, meaning we have to have ego, because say infinite bliss, infinite goodness is source. That's where we want to be. Home is oneness. We're striving to get back to that, to our home. Whether it's heaven, God, whatever, the center of Big Bang, I don't know, whatever. To leave that and to have an existence out here as me, as Keith, as you watching behind the screens, to have that experience between your eyes, it had to separate itself. It had to, it can't truly separate from itself because we are a thought inside of that undefinable thing. We are a thought inward, manifested into our own quote-unquote individual perceptions, and that thing that cut us off from God, if you will, is the devil. This is what the Cabal wasn't saying is verbatim. It's not what I'm saying is verbatim, but it is a damn good conceptualization of an ancient fucking question that we can't seem to answer, and it's, why does evil exist? And again, the proposition is, in order to have the illusion of separation, to have an infinite amount of experiences as different things, it has to have an illusion of separation. That illusion of separation is the ego. That is the illusion of separation. It's the lens that we're looking through. But if God is home and you've now created an illusion on the other side of the veil as something individualized, no longer a part of God, but necessary to have this illusion so that you can have an individual experience of God, you have to have the devil and / or the ego. Now, I'm not saying the ego is the devil, but I just find it, again, curious as fuck that I would agree, maybe not all of us, but I would agree that the majority of us really like some of these experiences that we've had. A lot of us don't have too many regrets. We understand that really fucked up shit's happened, but we understand that a lot of really fucking good things have happened too. And that for some reason the good outweighs the bad, and for some reason at the end of it all you come out stronger and a better person and thankful for the experience. That whole progress of starting from the bottom and fucking going through hell and finding yourself and finding God and finding truth, and then just being flayed by the flames of hell as you fucking trod through it barefoot with brimstone just searing your toes, and then you fucking come out of the cave and you see the light and you think, God damn, this is fucking amazing. Holy fucking shit, look how grand the world is, look how infinite and abundant, boundless, and awe-inspiring existence can be. And when you see that, it all makes sense, or at least in theory it should make sense. But that journey that we're all experiencing individually is again given to us by that illusion of separation, the ego, which arguably is why we get introduced to the darkness. It's why we have to start from the bottom and go through hell, because we have this fucking, I feel like I'm just going in circles now. we have this lens, you guys. 9 out of 10 spiritual folk will tell you that the ego sucks balls and it's the root cause of all your problems. And the other 1/10 who actually fucking study the occult and study fucking alchemy and hermeticism. I think that was officially the longest video I ever shot. My camera's never shut off before. That's it, you guys. We're calling it. I hope I've done something for you. My name is Keith, your man of letters, here to bring you knowledge, information, and hopefully a bit of entertainment. Please like the video, subscribe, hit the notification bell if you've made it this long, and get my book. It's called 7 Pillars, a Handbook for Existence. You can find it on Amazon. My name is Keith with a Y, Garcia. Happy to be a part of your guys' journey, and fucking please leave your names and a little about yourself, introduce. I like to do lives. I'm so busy, but I try to do them like twice a week if I can. And it's super cool. We're all homies. We talk. Everyone knows each other's name. It's like comfy. It's cool. This fucking candle's going crazy right now. But yeah, thanks. What I'm trying to say is thanks. And be merry. Catch you guys in the next video.